Hello and welcome to this top tip sessions on CVs. My name is Gillian Bain and I am a GCAS project manager with the GCAS team. The first thing to say is there are no restrictions, so any CV advice is guidance, not strict rules. So don't be tempted to copy a style that you're not comfortable with. Think of your own preferences. What is your usual communication style and approach? Your CV is the first example of your written communication skills the employer sees, so it should be authentic. Your style and approach will change over time. Ensure you offer employers a document which is recognisable as a CV. Have a look at sample formats and use this session to choose which feels right for you. Tailor to your audience. So advice in this session is about the UK labour market. So that's what we're going to focus on and concentrate on today. I'm afraid I'm unable to provide tailored advice for recruitment in other countries. So, conducting thorough research is a great way to make your CV stand out. Which skills are employers in your sector looking for and why? We refer to this as commercial awareness. You're not expected to know everything at the application stage, but understanding how the skills an employer is seeking relate to the job description is essential so that you can offer relevant examples which meet the criteria in your CV. Avoid copying and pasting text from the job description, but do mirror the language the recruiter has used where relevant. So for example, if they ask for examples using specific terminology, e.g. motivated rather than driven, use this in your CV, as those who are shortlisting CVs will assess against the criteria set out in the advert, scoring whether you've partially met, fully met, or exceeded expectations against that skill criteria. Evidence speaks for itself, so don't simply list the tasks that you've completed. Employers require proof, so think about each point you make in your CV objectively from the reader's perspective. Ask yourself, what am I trying to get across, and what will the reader understand about me? For example, worked on the till. Use a skill such as customer service, active listening, quick thinking, and trustworthiness. Remember that you needing or wanting a job is not a good enough incentive for employers to hire you. So think carefully about why you chose them and why you would like to work there. What is it that you are offering them? Use clear formatting. So in a reverse chronological CV, you'll most likely use this structure or something similar. All information is presented with the most recent information first. You can also use a skill-based structure, which is most typical for career changers, or a combination of both if you choose. But this can result in repetition or lack of clarity, so please be careful. There's no set order for these sections. If something is more relevant to the employer, add it to your first page where they're more likely to read it. Use a clear format that allows a reader to quickly find key information relevant to this recruitment process, and your CV may only get 7 seconds of the reader's time. Avoid jargon or acronyms an HR representative or other colleague who is shortlisting would be unable to understand. Large recruiters may use technology to quickly skim applications and identify whether you've covered what they're looking for. In an NMG group study on eye tracking, findings indicated that people use an F or Z-shaped pattern to skim for information depending on what they're viewing. So i.e. they read the top and middle and down the left-hand margin first, or start in the top left, move to the right, then back to the left to scan for key information. An F-shaped pattern is the most common, particularly online. We tend to read the first couple of paragraphs in full, but will not read the rest in detail. So aim to cover your key points at the start of each sentence. So for example, organised, led, collaborated, and split into subsections for clarity. If you add your LinkedIn profile URL, ensure your profile settings allow access to recruiters who are not connected with you, or they'll not be able to see any of your experience. You can also change the number in the URL to your name in your settings. If you're going to add referees, always ask them for explicit permission beforehand. Preferably gain consent in writing, i.e. by email, so you know that they're comfortable with their details being sent to employers, particularly if you plan to send several applications. It's important to let your referees know what you're applying to in case they're contacted shortly after you apply. So references available on request is more appropriate if you're applying speculatively. So here's an example of a reverse chronological CV. So your name and your contact details are at the top, followed by a personal summary, then your education, and then your experience and your skills. But as I said earlier, it may be more appropriate to have your experience and skills before education. There really is no rules, but make sure that each section is labelled clearly for the recruiter to navigate. So keep it relevant. Around 70% of graduate recruiters in the UK accept any degree discipline as long as you can demonstrate you have the skills required, which means recruiters are expecting a lot of variety. It's your task to convince them you're the right candidate for the job that you've applied to. So avoid listing tasks by outlining the skills you've used when completing your key responsibilities. Keep the objective recruiter's perspective in mind by reviewing each statement you make and thinking about which skills and outcomes are most relevant and of interest to the reader. Where possible, link your examples to how the skills will be used in the job. If you don't have an example which is directly relevant, focus on how the transferable skills you gain from similar types of activities will enable you to complete the job. Employers ask you to demonstrate competencies so that they can predict how well you can do the tasks involved in their advertised jobs and by how you've done something similar and or used similar skills in the past. Use action verbs such as achieved, increased, led to emphasise your achievements and your impact. Think about things like critical thinking, research, complex communication. These are all transferable skills that you'll bring from any degree discipline. So, be succinct. So CVs are usually 1 to 2 pages long. Academic CVs can be different. They tend to be longer because you're including links to academic publications that you may have had. Sometimes an employer might request that you only do a 1-page CV, particularly if you're applying to something such as an internship. Large paragraphs of text are difficult to skim for the most relevant parts, so try and make it as easy as possible for the reader to find out what they're looking for. Perhaps you could use bullet points instead. Create a brief and relevant profile. Generic profiles waste space on your CV, as it could be true of anyone. Let's look at the example at the top of this page. I'm an excellent team player with good communication skills who works equally well alone or as part of a team. I would like to work in finance. Aim to let the evidence speak for itself. Remember that without proof, you're not giving the reader any reason to believe you. Link your key skills to where or when you gained the experience as a prompt for the reader to find out more in the CV. Don't add a profile if you're not convinced it's adding to the document overall. Choose a career objective if preferred. An effective personal profile is brief and offers an overview of the attributes which make you suitable for the role and can also be about the type of work that you're aiming for. Here are a couple of examples. Third year business management undergraduate with experience in using effective communication skills to build client rapport within the retail sector. Strongly focused on innovative marketing approaches at university and applied theory to practice within voluntary roles. Particular passion for the film and entertainment industry, developed through work with Film Society and volunteering with Edinburgh International Film Festival. Or, Final year politics students seeking a graduate role within the charity sector. Academic studies and voluntary experience have led to an increased personal interest in social justice and human rights issues. Work experience gained over recent years has developed particular strengths in organisational skills and building client relations. These profiles are good and they're relevant because they clearly say what the person has studied or is studying, what skills they've acquired, what experience they have, and the type of role that they're looking for. Value your voluntary work. Some candidates devalue their experiences that are unpaid, sometimes incorrectly, believing that if you were not paid for your work or involvement, that it doesn't count. You can see from the list on the screen that omitting mention of voluntary experiences would reduce the impact of your CV. If you've developed these kinds of experiences, think about the wide range of skills gained and developed. You can use these to your advantage to address parts of the person specification. Add your extras. Think of this as the cherry on top, the extras that finish off your CV. Think about what else you can offer. Anything sector specific will demonstrate a wider interest in the role, sector, topic, etc. Choose the most relevant headings to you and your experiences, rather than using a prescriptive model. Think about additional skills which would be relevant to the role you've applied for, and use the desirable skills section of the job advert for clues. Remember to think objectively about each piece of information you give to the employer. Common pitfalls include contradictory information, repetition of earlier information in different words, listing a set of extra activities. For example, I enjoy reading, running, and yoga. You can demonstrate commitment by adding, for over 10 years I've been an active runner 2 or 3 times a week, which enhances the reader's understanding of you. Socialising can be misconstrued as partying or similar, so just consider other ways to demonstrate the communication and interpersonal skills involved. Organise your references. So know your rights for your references. The referee must provide a fair and accurate reference, but this can include whether you were sacked and information about your performance, so be mindful of who you choose. They do not have to consent to giving you a reference. For example, if you performed poorly or they will be unavailable, on holiday, or don't have enough time. So you must ask for permission. Choose someone who knows you well enough and will be available at the time the employer requests it. If you had a poor experience in your previous employment, select someone from recent volunteering, society, or club involvement who can vouch for your character and skills. Never add someone's name and/or contact information to your CV before asking them. Proofread and then proofread again. Check and double check to avoid errors which could mean that you're discounted straight away. Take a fresh look the next day and think about whether it would be helpful to get a trusted friend, family member, or colleague to have a look at your CV before you send it. And there's some examples here on the screen where a missing comma or a missing or sort of a word being spelt incorrectly has clearly changed what the sentence is trying to say. Use the GCAS resources. So through the On Programme section of the GCAS website, you've got access to many resources 24/7. They're a really good place to start. If you would like more personalised support, you can always contact the GCAS team directly at gcas@ed.ac.uk. So to summarise and identify next steps, tailor to your audience. Use clear formatting. Keep it relevant. Be succinct. Create a brief and relevant profile. Value all of your experience. Add your extras. organise your references, proofread and then proofread again, and use the GCAS on-programme resources. Now, what we'd really like you to do, having listened to this session, is to have a think if anything has stood out to you about this advice which you now feel is a priority for you to address. Or have you learned something new which you want to follow up with further practice? Or maybe having attended this session, you've decided that you need some additional one-to-one support. So please do contact the GCAS team. Thank you.